Story 1. A friend of mine called me around 3 in the morning about a fantastic, groundbreaking idea he had for preventing sunburn on your feet. He wears Crocs a lot, so I was actually kind of interested. Okay, okay. So, like, cloth or something you can put on your feet that would keep you from getting sunburn through the holes. Socks. He was describing socks. Story 2. While smoking weed with some friends, I came up with an idea for a restaurant. I called it Pound Town. The idea was that all of our specials would be centered around a pound, like 16-ounce steaks and things like that. Our signature desserts would incorporate pound cake. You get the idea. I even had an idea for the commercial. It would start off with a kid in his late teens walking up and knocking on someone's front door. He suddenly stiffens up when an older man opens the door. Hi. I'm here to pick up Jenny. You must be Zach, he says somewhat sternly. Jenny's still getting ready. Come inside. She'll just be another minute. They both sit down in the living room, and an awkward silence falls between them as the father eyes the young man suspiciously. So, the father says, "Where exactly are you planning on taking my daughter tonight?" The kid cracks a sly smile as he says, "I'm taking her to Pound Town." The father ridiculously nods in approval as the advertisement kicks off, showing the food and announcing the specials. Story 3. While high, I came up with the idea of making pens with white ink that would cover up any mistakes on white paper. I realized not only that it had been done already, but that I had one in my backpack next to where I kept the pen I used to write down the idea. Story 4. While taking what I thought was acid and turned out to be a drug called 25 and Bohm, I was beyond confident that I had not only finally understood the truest, deepest secret of the universe, but that I had distilled the idea into an image that could be drawn out. I was certain that, with that image, I could remember everything about the true universal secrets when I came down. The next day, I looked at the paper, and it was a line with a circle on each end, like a dumbbell. I have no idea what it means. Story 5. A pot or bowl with holes in it so that you did not have to use a wire mesh strainer to strain spaghetti. I had drawings and everything. People around me were like, "Wow, this thing is going to make millions." Next day, "Dude, that's a colander." Story 6. The TV show Cheaters, except with stray cats. Candid cameras catching cats being unfaithful with other neighborhood cats and a human host interviewing the cats getting cheated on, just like the television show. Still kind of want this to be a thing in a sober mindset. Story 7. Running for my local school board, I had a lot of issues with the way education works in our country and believed the best way to fix the system was by running an honest campaign and promising to fight for the change that would help kids learn better. Ultimately, I sobered up and realized an unemployed, stoned 24-year-old with no kids was not the best candidate. Story 8. My niece drunk texted me and went on and on about her idea for party popper tampons. She wanted to make tampons that shot out string and confetti when you pulled the string. It was all something about women celebrating their freedom and vaginas. It was a very confusing 2 a.m. series of texts when she was just supposed to let me know she made it home safe from her night out. Story 9. Sugar bags. Like tea bags but for sugar. Tea and 2 sugars? 1 tea bag, 2 sugar bags. As we were stoned, my cousin held up an empty tea bag filled with sugar, and I tried to carefully tie it back up with a piece of cotton. My cousin disappointingly said, "Sugar cubes." Story 10. I got high one time and thought of a great business idea where everyone pays money into a pot and one person wins it all. Turns out the lottery already exists. Story 11. I thought it would be practical if you had a tag with your address written on it attached to your keys, so if you ever lost them, they could be sent back. Seemed brilliant to me. Thieves might enjoy this idea as well. Edit. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Story 12. My friend is a lawyer, and when he was in law school, he did a summer internship in Ghana studying international law. We were talking, and he came up with the brilliant idea to make chairs in Ghana because everyone he saw there was just sitting on the ground. He was convinced we could have made a fortune selling chairs. Story 13. I had this idea that the Taken films should each focus on a different set of skills. Like Liam Neeson could be an amazing chef in Taken 2, and perhaps a postman in Taken 3. Story 14. One time, I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea, a revolutionary idea. Something I needed to write down as fast as possible so I wouldn't forget. So, I wrote it down and went back to sleep. I woke up, looked at the piece of paper, and all it said was Pennzoil Mini Wheats. I've never quite figured out what I was thinking. Story 15. My notes app is full of liquor and weed-soaked epiphanies and revelations from my younger years. My favorite reads, "Any boy that has the pineapple is a good boy." Story 16. Juber. Uber for Orthodox Jews. You would prearrange when the Uber would come to get you to go to the synagogue, and you wouldn't have to open doors, walk, etc. Story 17. When I did shrooms, I came up with the absolutely genius idea that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration should employ young children and send them to space for missions because they have more natural curiosity and aren't jaded yet by adulthood, and they might notice things that a more experienced astronaut would miss because they'll look from a different perspective. I was convinced I needed to email the National Aeronautics and Space Administration right away and tell them about my brilliant epiphany. Apparently, I really need to watch Space Camp and the Astronauts and read the Ender's Game series. I appreciate all the kind comments and awards. Story 18. I had this idea for a movie in a similar vein to Cabin in the Woods, where these people move into a haunted house. Except the plot is from the antagonist's perspective, where the ghosts haunting the house treat it like a job and have interviews in front of a camera, reality show style, venting about how tedious the little aspects of the job are. The premise was this ghost had reluctantly picked up and followed this family to this new house in order to keep haunting them, and inadvertently stepped on another ghost's jurisdiction. They'd bicker about who haunts whom, and antics ensue. I realize now that this is more or less just what we do in the shadows. Damn you, Taika. Alright, guys, I'm trying to make it as a musician and have made decent progress so far. When I do, I'll go the Atlanta or Dave route and bring this up in a hopefully eventual pitch meeting. Thanks for your encouragement, you all, and please don't steal my idea, maybe? Give me 5 years. Story 19. My grand idea was to put caramelized onions in my hamburger helper. Yeah, it was good, but not as mind-blowing as I thought it would be when I was high as a kite. Story 20. Got really high and had the sudden realization that things that are lighter than air are the things that float. I wondered, there's more than just helium that's lighter than air contents. How come we don't have other ways to fill balloons and stuff? Then my friend goes, ever heard of the Hindenburg, dumbass? Story 21. I was thinking that kids these days need more time on the road to be better drivers, so maybe Uber should partner with driving education groups and subsidize them or pay the kids in college bonds. Yeah, maybe hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi services isn't such a great idea. Story 22. I have a running note on my phone with my ideas I have while intoxicated. I think my best one is, what if there was a Queer Eye spinoff called Third Eye, where hippies and conspiracy theorists try to awaken people who are already happy with their lives? Most of them are just dumb, with such highlights as future math will be cool, and there's a lot of cute animal behavior. Story 23. One time when I was tripping, I wrote down this whole page of numbers and swore it was the answer. The answer to what, I don't know. I just kept saying, it's all about the digits. Story 24. Here's a good one from my list of high ideas. Dumpsters, trash cans, and dives. Live stream dumpster diving like American Pickers or Storage Wars, but completely false pricing guesses with fake accents. Story 25. When a football match goes into extra time, they should add a second ball. If it gets to halftime without anyone scoring, they add a third ball. I'm actually not sure this idea is a bad one. Story 26. I was on acid and had a revelation that I had to make the next Google. I have no idea what it means to be the next Google, but regardless, it felt like the best idea in the world. The feeling of checking my notes app the next day for the grand idea I had and seeing be the next Google was hilarious. Story 27. Not me, but Paul McCartney. The first time he got high, he apparently discovered the meaning of life and immediately went to write it down. When he woke up the next morning, he looked at the paper, and it said, there are 7 levels. Story 28. Yes, pre-melted cheese. Okay, I feel the need to clarify as people are mentioning nacho cheese, Velveeta, or Cheese Whiz. I was so baked. My idea was pre-melted cheese, like boil-in-the-bag rice, but for cheese. Imagine a block of cheddar cheese in a sandwich bag, boiled until molten, and it stayed molten, never solidifying, so I could just pour it on stuff. I was so high, I literally forgot all the aforementioned products existed and thought I was going to be a millionaire. I started talking with my friends about where I should live, whether in Los Angeles or New York, in a penthouse suite, and have a butler and maids. Then I came to after passing out at some point and remembered the entire conversation and thought, holy God, I'm a moron. Story 29. Always felt free throws in basketball slowed the game down too much. Felt instead they should have dunks instead, where the player that was fouled has a running start from the three-point line and the one who committed the foul is at the basket defending against the dunk. I suppose this could turn into an endless loop of fouling. Story 30. My two friends and I were extremely high and very hungry. We pooled all our money and decided to buy the most food we could with what we had gathered. We had a total of 16 pounds. Our thought process was to order 16 portions of chips, French fries for you Americans. We had to call the takeaway 3 times before they believed it wasn't a prank. We convinced them we were throwing a party. The takeaway finally delivered it, and my other friend and I were too high to go to the door, so we made our third friend go by himself. All the lights were off, and there was no music playing, so from the delivery driver's perspective, he delivered 16 portions of chips to one man alone. Needless to say, 16 portions of chips is too much food for 3 people. Story 31. Once, while thoroughly drunk, I ordered a pizza and it arrived overcooked. The crust was like dried asphalt, and the toppings were blackened and singed. So, I suggested to my other drunk buddies that pizza places should let their customers control the pizza ovens through the internet, so we can decide when it's done. This led to an entire design-your-own-pizza machine and website combination, where one could control exactly how much of each ingredient to add using robotic arms, and you could watch it cook live through an oven camera. It seemed brilliant at the time. Story 32. Cardboard boxes for kitty litter that open on the side like origami form a litter box for cats. At the end of a week, you fold it all up, throw it away, and then open a new one. There is so much cardboard waste because it would have to be treated to be water resistant on the inside and would be completely unrecyclable afterward. Story 33. One of my philosophy professors told a joke about a philosopher having a dream in which he met Socrates, but quickly saw the proper rebuttal to his views, which Socrates conceded. Then he met Aristotle, Descartes, Kant, Nietzsche, and Mill, and with each of them presented his contrary position successfully. He knew he was dreaming, but he thought, I have to wake up enough to write this down. He managed to become conscious enough that he quickly scrawled the words down on some paper, then fell asleep again. The next morning he woke up, remembered what had happened, and excitedly grabbed the note. It read, "Yeah, that's what you say." Story 34. When I was in high school, after a lengthy session one evening, I came up with the idea of the reverse candle, which would consume carbon dioxide and produce oxygen while also providing shade. Everyone thought it was a good idea, so we wrote it out on paper so we wouldn't forget. Later, the next day, I realized we invented trees. Story 35. Usually, I make big plans that cost a lot of money and then promise sober people that we will do them. So they start to look forward to the plans. I sober up and regret all of my decisions yet still have to follow through. Most recently, I promised my sister that I would bring my daughter to visit her in Florida. $2,000 later, I have a sunburn. Story 36. My wife and I got this genius idea after smoking to create the next big hit in the snack world, cup crepes. A cupcake made from mini crepes stacked on top of one another, topped with whipped cream and strawberries. Story 37. I was high. I made some killer macaroni and cheese, and I saw that I had some bacon. So I cooked up the bacon, cut it into small pieces, and put it on the macaroni and cheese. It was so goddamn heavenly that I forgot bacon bits on macaroni and cheese already existed. In my fit of excitement, I texted my friend about my totally brand new, never done before creation, and I was told that it already existed. Story 38. I made a soup sandwich while really high before. The soup obviously just destroyed the bread's integrity and just fell out of the sandwich. That was the first time in my life I realized just how dumb I am. Story 39. As teenagers, my friend and I used to get really stoned and go sit in this particular diner for hours and drink coffee until we sobered up. One time, two police officers in uniform came in and sat down a few tables away and ordered some food. At first, we were kind of paranoid, but they didn't seem to be paying us any attention. My friend was the type of guy who liked to do wacky things just to be funny, especially on a dare. He was also a big proponent of marijuana legalization. Like, he talked about it all the time. I told him I thought it would be hilarious to go up and ask the police officers their thoughts on marijuana legalization. We were both still pretty baked, and he thought it was a funny idea too, so on a whim, he decided to do it. He took off his jacket, set it on the bench next to him, walked calmly over to their table, and began talking with them. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the conversation appeared to be polite and lasted a minute or two. He came back to the table with a big stoned grin on his face. "Ah man, those police officers seem okay to me. They both said they think weed should be legal, and it's a waste of their time to go after pot smokers." A little while later, the police officers finished their food and left. One of them even smiled and nodded to my friend on the way out. We watched them get into their patrol car and drive out of the parking lot. We stayed for about another half hour and then left to catch the bus home. We got to the bus stop, and just as we both lit up a cigarette, a police car pulled up with the same two police officers inside. They had been sitting in the parking lot next door with their lights off, waiting for us to come out of the diner. We obviously weren't old enough to be smoking cigarettes, and a check of our identification confirmed that. They searched both of us and found a small amount of weed and a pipe in my friend's jacket. We both got tickets for underage smoking. He got cited for the pipe and marijuana, was given a court date, and taken home to his parents in the back of a police car.